inside a medieval bakery at 4 a.m. Introduction. Hey guys, tonight we are waking up before the rest of the world. The village outside is pitch black and frozen tight, but we have somewhere warm to go. We are stepping into the bakery at 4 in the morning. We are going to find comfort in the heat of the oven and the rhythm of the dough. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now, breathe in the smell of wood smoke and yeast, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It is 4 in the morning in the middle of winter, and the world outside is darker than you can imagine. There are no streetlights. There are no windows glowing with electric warmth. There is only the deep, complete darkness of a medieval village in the hours before dawn. The kind of darkness that wraps around everything like heavy cloth. The kind of darkness where you cannot see your own hand in front of your face. The cold is sharp and clean. It bites at your cheeks and fingertips. Your breath comes out in white clouds that disappear into the black air. The village is silent. Everyone is still asleep in their beds, huddled under wool blankets and furs, waiting for the first light of morning. The thatched roofs are covered in frost that sparkles faintly when you look up at the stars. The stars are the only light, thousands of them. More stars than you have ever seen, scattered across the sky like flour dust on a dark table. Your boots crunch on the frozen ground. The dirt road is hard as stone. There is ice in the wagon ruts. You can hear your own footsteps and your own breathing and nothing else. The village is so quiet that the silence has weight. It presses against your ears. You walk slowly, carefully, because the darkness is complete and you must feel your way forward. But then you see it, a faint glow. Orange and warm, like a small sun has been born at the end of the village lane. It is coming from one building, just one, the bakery. As you get closer, the glow grows stronger. It is light spilling out from under the door from between the shutters. It is the only light in the entire village, and it draws you forward like a beacon. Your pace quickens. The cold seems sharper now because you know warmth is waiting. Just a few more steps, just a little further. You reach the door. It is thick wood, old and solid, with iron hinges that have been hammered by hand. You can feel the warmth radiating through it. Even before you open it, you can feel the heat on your frozen fingers. You lift the latch. You push. And the warmth hits you like a wave. It is not just warmth. It is heat, real heat, the kind of heat that makes you gasp. The air inside the bakery is thick and hot and alive. It wraps around you instantly, soaking into your cold clothes, into your cold skin. You step inside quickly and close the door behind you, shutting out the frozen darkness. And for a moment, you just stand there. You stand in the doorway and let the heat wash over you. Your face begins to tingle as the blood rushes back to your cheeks. Your fingers start to ache as they thaw. The smell, oh, the smell. It hits you at the same moment as the heat, and it is glorious. It is the smell of toasted grain and wood smoke and yeast and fermentation. It is the smell of bread that is baking and dough that is rising and flour that has been warmed by the hot air. It is a smell that makes your mouth water instantly. It is a smell that speaks of comfort and safety and home. It is a smell that humans have known for thousands of years. The smell of bread. Your eyes adjust to the light. The bakery is lit by the glow of the oven and by a few tallow candles set in iron holders on the wall. The light is orange and golden and dancing. It flickers. It casts long shadows that move and shift. Everything in the room seems to be moving in that light. The walls seem to breathe. The ceiling seems to pulse with warmth. This is where you will spend the next few hours. This is your sanctuary from the frozen darkness outside. The bakery at 4 in the morning. The warmest place in the entire village. The place where the day begins, even while the night is still heavy and complete. You can hear the fire now, the soft crackle and pop of wood burning deep in the oven. You can hear the faint hiss of moisture escaping from the logs. The sounds are gentle and rhythmic and comforting. They blend with the warmth and the smell to create something whole. something complete. This is a place where work happens, but it is also a place of peace, a place where the body can move through familiar motions while the mind rests. The floor beneath your feet is packed earth, smoothed by countless footsteps. In some places, there are worn stones, especially near the oven where the heat is most intense. The walls are thick plaster over timber frames, and they are warm to the touch. The ceiling is low, crossed with dark beams that are blackened by years of smoke. Everything in this room has been touched by flour and smoke and time. You take a deep breath. The air is so warm it feels almost solid in your lungs. You can taste the yeast and the wheat. You can feel the heat settling into your bones. The cold outside already seems like a distant memory. Here, in this small room, in this golden light, time moves differently. The darkness outside does not matter. The cold does not matter. There is only the warmth and the work and the ancient rhythm of making bread. You are ready to begin. The oven dominates the room. It is massive. It takes up nearly a quarter of the entire bakery, and it is the heart of everything. Without the oven, this room would be just another cold, dark space. But with the oven burning, roaring, glowing with heat, the bakery becomes something else entirely. It becomes alive. The oven is built from brick. Hundreds and hundreds of bricks, laid by hand, fitted together with careful precision. The bricks are old. They have been baking bread for decades, maybe longer. They are stained dark brown and black from years of smoke and heat. In some places, the mortar has cracked and been patched. In other places, you can see where the bricks have begun to wear smooth from the constant heat. This oven has a history. It has fed this village for generations. The shape of the oven is beautiful in its simplicity. It is a dome, a perfect, curved dome that rises from a thick base and tapers to a rounded top. The dome shape is ancient. It is the same shape that bakers have used for thousands of years because it is the shape that holds heat the best. The heat rises and spreads across the curved interior, creating an even, intense temperature that can bake bread to perfection. The opening of the oven, the mouth, that is what everyone calls it, the mouth of the oven, and it does look like a mouth, a wide, dark opening that glows from within. Right now, in the early morning, the mouth is filled with burning embers. You can see them glowing deep inside, orange and red and white where the heat is most intense. They pulse gently, like the oven is breathing. The light from the embers casts dancing shadows across your face and hands. You step closer to the oven. The heat intensifies immediately. 2 steps away from the mouth, the air is warm. 1 step away, it is hot. Right at the mouth, standing directly in front of it, the heat is almost unbearable. It presses against your face and chest like a physical force. You have to squint against it. You can feel your skin tightening. You can feel the moisture evaporating from your lips. But you do not step back. You are used to this heat. You have stood in front of this oven 1,000 times before. You know how to work in this heat. You know how to move your body so that the hottest air flows past you instead of into you. You know how to breathe shallow breaths so your lungs do not burn. This is your craft. This is your skill. You reach for the iron rake. It is leaning against the wall beside the oven, exactly where it always is. The rake is a simple tool, a long wooden handle, taller than you are, with an iron head that has been forged into a T-shape with short, stubby tines. The wood of the handle is worn smooth by countless hands. It is darkened by soot and oil and sweat. When you grip it, your hand fits into the grooves worn by all the bakers who came before you. You extend the rake into the mouth of the oven. The heat intensifies even more. Your hands, even though they are far from the opening, begin to feel hot. The rake slides across the floor of the oven. The floor is stone. Thick slabs of stone that have been heated by the fire for hours. They are glowing with stored heat. When the rake touches them, you can hear a faint scraping sound, metal against stone. Inside the oven, you can see the remains of the fire from last night. Logs that have burned down to glowing coals. Brushwood that has become white ash and orange embers. The fire was built hours ago, probably around 2 in the morning, by the baker's apprentice. He would have come into the cold, dark bakery and built the fire carefully, layer by layer, feeding it until it roared. Then he would have gone back to bed, letting the fire burn down into these perfect baking coals. Now it is your job to prepare the oven for the bread. You use the rake to move the embers. You pull them forward toward the mouth. Then you sweep them to the sides. The goal is to clear the center of the oven floor, creating a clean, hot surface where the loaves will sit. The embers and coals will stay at the edges, radiating heat, keeping the oven at the perfect temperature. You work slowly, carefully. Each movement of the rake is deliberate. You pull a pile of glowing coals to the left side of the oven. You can see them tumbling over each other, orange sparks flying up. You pull another pile to the right side. The heat coming from the mouth is intense. You can feel sweat beginning to form on your forehead despite the cold winter morning outside. The ash, there is so much ash, white and grey and powder fine. Some of it falls through the tines of the rake. Some of it puffs up into the hot air, swirling in tiny clouds that glow orange in the light of the coals. You keep raking, keep pulling the coals to the sides, keep clearing the center. Finally, the center of the oven floor is clear. You can see the stone now. It is dark brown, almost black from years of baking, but you can also see that it is glowing with heat. The stone has absorbed the heat of the fire for hours, and now it holds that heat like a battery. When you place the loaves on this stone, they will begin baking immediately from the bottom. The stored heat in the stone is what gives bread its perfect crust, the hard, golden, crackling crust that everyone loves. You step back from the oven. Your face is flushed and hot. You take a deep breath of the cooler air away from the mouth. The heat radiating from the oven fills the entire room. It rises to the ceiling and spreads to every corner. Even the darkest parts of the bakery are warm. Even the air near the door, where the cold tries to seep in, is comfortable. The oven is ready. The coals are positioned. The stone floor is clean and glowing with heat. In a few hours, this oven will be filled with loaves, dozens of loaves, all baking at once in the shared heat. But first, there is other work to do. The dough must be made. The dough must be kneaded. And all of that begins with flour. The bakery is covered in flour. Everywhere you look, there is a fine layer of pale dust. It coats the wooden work table. It has settled on the shelves. It has drifted into every corner and crack and crevice. It hangs in the air, invisible until you move through it, and then you can see tiny particles swirling in the light from the oven. The entire room is dusted with flour like snow has fallen inside. This is normal. This is how a bakery looks. Flour is impossible to contain. No matter how careful you are, it escapes. When you scoop it from the sacks, it puffs into the air. When you pour it into the mixing trough, it rises in a small cloud. When you knead the dough, it coats your hands and your arms and inevitably falls to the floor. Flour is everywhere. It is the evidence of the work. It is the mark of this trade. The sacks of flour are lined up against the far wall. There are 6 of them, each one made of rough, undyed linen. Each sack is the size of a grown man, heavy and solid. They slump against each other like sleeping animals. The flour inside them is milled wheat. It was ground just a few days ago at the village mill, where the great millstone turns and turns, crushing the grain between stone surfaces. This flour is different from the flour you might know. It is coarser. You can see tiny flecks of bran in it, darker specks scattered through the pale powder. It is not white. It is more of a cream color, a warm, natural tone. This is not refined flour. This is whole grain mostly. The kind of flour that gives bread substance and weight and flavor. The kind of flour that has fed people for centuries. You walk to the work table. It is a massive piece of furniture. A single slab of thick wood, probably oak, worn smooth by decades of use. The surface is pale from the flour that has been kneaded into it over the years. There are faint grooves and marks where knives have cut, where dough has been shaped, where countless hands have worked. The table is positioned perfectly in the room, close enough to the oven to stay warm, but far enough away that the heat does not become overwhelming. You run your hand across the surface of the table. Flour dust comes up on your palm. You can feel the grain of the wood beneath the powder. The table is cool compared to the oven, but it is not cold. The warmth from the fire keeps everything in this room at a comfortable temperature. Even the flour dust feels soft and dry and pleasant on your skin. The light from the oven catches the flour dust in the air. You can see it now, swirling gently in the golden light. Tiny particles drifting slowly downward, suspended in the warm currents of air. It is beautiful in a simple way. It makes the air look thick and golden. It makes the whole room glow. You reach for one of the wooden scoops hanging on the wall. It is a simple tool carved from a single piece of wood. The bowl of the scoop is deep and smooth. The handle fits perfectly in your hand. This scoop has measured out flour for hundreds of loaves, maybe thousands. You walk to the nearest sack and untie the cord that holds it closed. The top of the sack falls open, revealing the flour inside. It is piled high, soft, and powdery. The smell that rises from the sack is wonderful. It is the smell of dry, ground wheat. It is earthy and clean and somehow sweet. It is the smell of grain and harvest and sunlight captured in powder form. You push the scoop into the flour. It sinks in easily. The flour is so fine that it parts like water. You lift the scoop out, and it is heaping full. Some flour spills over the edges and falls back into the sack. Some puffs into the air. You carry the scoop to the table and pour the flour out in a pile. It cascades down in a stream, building into a small white mountain on the dark wood. You go back for more, scoop after scoop. Each time the flour pours out in that same beautiful stream. Each time the pile on the table grows larger. You are not measuring with precision. You are measuring with experience. You know how much flour you need. You have made this bread so many times that your body knows. Your eyes know. Your hands know. After 7 scoops, you stop. The pile of flour on the table is substantial. It is perhaps 2 feet across and 8 inches high at the center. The sides of the pile slope down gently. It looks soft and inviting. It looks like you could sink your hands into it and it would feel like silk. You pause for a moment. You look at the flour pile. This is potential. This pile of ground wheat is nothing right now. It is just powder. But in a few hours, this flour will be transformed. It will become dough. It will become bread. It will become food that will feed families. Food that will give energy and warmth and life. This pile of powder contains all of that possibility. The flour catches the light from the oven. The surface of the pile glows orange and gold. The particles are so fine that they seem to shimmer. You reach out and touch the top of the pile with one finger. The flour is soft. It compresses under your touch and then springs back slightly. It leaves a coating of white on your fingertip. You look around the bakery. Everything is dusted with this same flour. The shelves, the tools hanging on the walls, the beams of the ceiling, even your clothes are probably dusted with it by now. Your apron certainly is. This flour is inescapable. It is the substance of this place. It is what makes this room a bakery instead of just another building. The air smells of wheat and smoke and warmth. The oven crackles softly behind you. The heat presses against your back. The flour pile sits on the table waiting. Everything is ready. But before you can begin mixing the dough, before you can add water and salt and begin the real work, you need to check on something else. Something that has been waiting all night. Something alive. In the corner of the bakery, there is a large wooden trough. It is called a chest sometimes, or a kneading trough. It is a rectangular box, about 4 feet long and 2 feet wide, made from thick planks of wood that have been joined together with careful precision. The wood is dark with age and stained from years of use. The trough sits on sturdy legs that keep it at a comfortable working height, about waist level. This trough is where the dough is mixed. This trough is where the flour and water and salt and starter come together. This trough is where the transformation happens. But right now, the trough is not empty. Right now, it holds something that has been growing all night, the sponge. You walk over to the trough. You can smell it before you even reach it. The smell is distinctive. It is sour, not unpleasantly sour, but definitely acidic. It is the smell of fermentation, the smell of yeast working, eating, multiplying. It is a cidery smell, almost like apples that have begun to turn. It is a smell that makes your nose wrinkle slightly, but it is also a good smell, a familiar smell, the smell of bread dough that is alive and active. The trough has a wooden lid. It is a simple plank that fits across the top, keeping the contents covered and protected. You reach for the lid with both hands. It is heavy. You lift it carefully and set it aside, leaning it against the wall. And there it is, the sponge. It fills about a third of the trough. It is a mass of thick, sticky dough, grayish-white in color, with a surface that is covered in bubbles. Thousands of tiny bubbles. They cluster together like foam. Some of them have popped, leaving small craters. Others are still intact, stretched thin, trembling slightly as if they might burst at any moment. The surface of the sponge is not smooth. It is rough and uneven. It has risen during the night, expanded with the gas produced by the yeast, and then collapsed slightly, falling back on itself. There are folds and wrinkles in the surface. There are streaks where the dough has pulled apart and then settled back together. It looks alive. It looks like something breathing. You lean closer and look at it carefully. This sponge is your starter. It is the heart of every loaf you will make today. Yesterday evening, before you went to bed, you mixed a portion of flour with water and a small amount of old dough from the previous batch. You mixed it into a thick paste and left it in the trough, covered with the lid. And then the yeast went to work. The yeast, you cannot see the yeast. They are invisible, tiny organisms, countless millions of them living in the flour and in the old dough. When you mixed the flour with water, you gave them food. You gave them moisture. You gave them everything they needed to wake up and begin feeding. And feed they did. All night long, the yeast consumed the sugars in the flour. They multiplied. They produced carbon dioxide gas and alcohol and acids. They transformed the simple mixture of flour and water into something complex and alive. The bubbles on the surface are carbon dioxide. The sour smell is the acids. The slight alcoholic note in the air is the byproduct of fermentation. This sponge is active. It is vital. It is ready. You reach out and touch the surface of the sponge with one finger. It is cool and sticky. Your finger sinks in slightly and comes away coated with a thin layer of the dough. You bring your finger to your nose and smell it. The sour, yeasty smell is strong. You touch your finger to your tongue. The taste is sharply acidic, with a slight sweetness underneath. This is good. This is exactly how it should taste. The texture of the sponge is fascinating. It is thick but not solid. It has body, but it also has elasticity. When you poke it with your finger, it resists slightly and then gives way. When you pull your finger back, the dough stretches for a moment before breaking. This is gluten beginning to form. The proteins in the flour have begun to bond with the water, creating those long, elastic strands that give bread its structure. You can see the bubbles more clearly now, looking down into the trough. Some of them are quite large, the size of a fingernail. Others are tiny, just pinpricks in the surface. They are distributed all through the sponge, not just on top. If you were to cut into the sponge, you would see that the entire mass is filled with holes and pockets of gas. The yeast has been working everywhere, not just at the surface. This is a living thing. That thought always strikes you when you look at the sponge. This is not just ingredients mixed together. This is a living culture. The yeast in this dough is descended from yeast that has been kept alive in this bakery for years. Every day, a portion of the dough is saved to start the next batch. Every day, the yeast is fed and kept active. This is an unbroken chain going back generations. The yeast in this trough might be the great-great-great-grandchildren of yeast that was used to make bread decades ago. You reach for a wooden paddle that hangs on the wall nearby. It is a flat, broad tool, almost like a spatula but larger and sturdier. You will use this to work with the sponge. You will use it to mix in the rest of the flour and the water and the salt. But first, you just want to stir it slightly. You want to see how it moves. You push the paddle into the sponge. It sinks in with a soft, wet sound. You can feel the resistance of the dough. You stir gently, and the sponge moves in slow, thick waves. More bubbles rise to the surface and pop. The smell intensifies. You can see how elastic it is, how the dough clings to the paddle and stretches when you pull it up. This is ready. This sponge is perfect. The yeast is active and strong. The fermentation is at exactly the right stage. If you left it much longer, it would become too sour, too acidic. If you had used it earlier, it would not have been strong enough. But now, right now, it is perfect. It is time to make the dough. The warmth from the oven fills the room. The flour pile sits on the table, waiting. The sponge bubbles gently in the trough. Everything is in place. Everything is ready. Now comes the work. Now comes the mixing and the kneading and the long, meditative process of turning flour and water and starter into bread dough. Now the real work begins. You stand at the trough, looking down at the bubbling sponge. The next steps must happen in order. There is a sequence to this work that has been followed for centuries. First the water, then the salt, then the flour, and then the mixing begins. You turn to the bucket of water sitting nearby. It was filled yesterday and has been sitting in the bakery all night, so it is room temperature now. Not cold from the well, not warm from the fire, just neutral, comfortable. This is important. If the water is too cold, it will slow down the yeast. If it is too hot, it will kill them. Room temperature is perfect. You pick up the bucket. It is made of wood, with iron bands around it to hold the staves together. It is heavy. Water is always heavier than you expect. You carry it to the trough and position it over the sponge. You begin to pour. The water streams out of the bucket in a clear arc. It hits the surface of the sponge and immediately begins to sink in. The sponge is so thick and sticky that the water does not just pool on top. It is absorbed. It disappears into the mass of dough. You pour slowly, steadily, watching as the water level rises in the trough. You pour about half the bucket, maybe 3 quarts of water, maybe a little more. Again, you are not measuring with precision. You are measuring with experience. You know how the dough should feel. You know how much water you need. Your body has memorized these proportions through countless repetitions. You set the bucket down and reach for the wooden paddle again. You push it into the mixture of sponge and water. Now you begin to stir. You move the paddle through the trough in slow, deliberate circles. The sponge begins to break apart. Chunks of it separate and swirl through the water. The water turns cloudy and white as the dough dissolves into it. You keep stirring. Around and around. The motion is soothing. The paddle makes soft, sloshing sounds as it moves through the mixture. The sponge continues to break down, getting thinner and more liquid. Soon, the entire contents of the trough look like thick, milky water with lumps of dough floating in it. Now the salt. Salt is precious. Salt is expensive. In this medieval village, salt comes from far away. It might have come from the coast, evaporated from seawater. It might have come from salt mines in the mountains. Either way, it traveled a long distance and cost a significant amount of money. You do not waste salt. There is a small wooden bowl on the shelf nearby. It contains the coarse salt crystals. You reach for it and bring it to the trough. You take a palmful of salt. The crystals are large and irregular, more like small pebbles than fine powder. They feel rough and dry in your hand. You sprinkle the salt into the trough. The crystals tumble down into the mixture. You take another palmful, and another. 3 palms full of salt for this batch. That is the right amount. Enough to flavor the bread and help control the yeast. Enough to preserve the dough slightly. Enough to create that perfect balance of taste. You set the bowl aside and pick up the paddle again. You stir. The salt crystals are dissolving. You can see some of them still intact, white against the pale mixture, but they are getting smaller. You stir for another minute, making sure the salt is evenly distributed throughout. Now comes the flour. You walk to the table where the pile of flour sits waiting. You take the wooden scoop and begin transferring flour from the table to the trough. 1 scoop, 2 scoops, 3 scoops. Each time you pour the flour in, it sits on top of the liquid mixture for just a moment before beginning to sink. Each time, a small cloud of flour dust puffs up into the air. You can see it swirling in the light from the oven, golden and thick. You keep adding flour. 4 scoops, 5 scoops, 6 scoops. The mixture in the trough is getting thicker. It is no longer liquid. It is becoming a paste. A thick, shaggy, uneven paste. You can see dry flour mixed with wet dough. You can see lumps and streaks and pockets where the ingredients have not fully combined. You pick up the paddle and begin to mix again. But this is harder now. The dough is thick. It resists the paddle. You have to push hard to move the paddle through the mixture. Your arms engage. Your shoulders engage. This is physical work. You mix with broad, sweeping motions. You drag the paddle through the dough from one end of the trough to the other. You lift the paddle and let the dough fall off it in thick globs. You push down into the bottom of the trough where dry flour has settled. You scrape the sides where dough has stuck. You are trying to incorporate everything. You are trying to get the flour and the water and the starter all combined into one uniform mass. The dough is shaggy. That is the word for it. It looks rough and uneven. It looks messy. There are dry patches and wet patches. There are lumps and holes. It does not look like bread dough yet. It looks like a disaster. But this is normal. This is how it always looks at this stage. You keep mixing. You keep pushing the paddle through the mass. You keep lifting and folding and scraping. And slowly, slowly, the dough begins to change. The dry patches are disappearing. The flour is being absorbed into the wet parts. The whole mass is becoming more uniform in color. It is pale and slightly gray, the color of raw dough. The texture is becoming more consistent, still shaggy, still rough, but less chaotic, more cohesive. You set the paddle aside. Your arms are warm from the effort. You can feel a light sweat on your forehead. The heat from the oven is not helping. The room is very warm now. But this is good. The warmth keeps the dough at a good temperature for the yeast. The warmth keeps your muscles loose and comfortable for the work ahead. You look down at the trough. The dough is piled in the center, a rough, shaggy mound. It is not beautiful yet. It is not smooth. It is not elastic. It is just a mass of flour and water and starter all stuck together. But it has potential. Inside this rough mass, the gluten is already beginning to form. The proteins are already beginning to bond. The yeast is already waking up, finding food in the fresh flour, preparing to work. Now comes the most important part. Now comes the part that will transform this shaggy mess into something beautiful. Now comes the kneading. You reach into the trough and put your hands on the dough. It is cool against your palms. It is rough and sticky and uneven. It clings to your skin. You curl your fingers into it and lift. The dough is heavy, very heavy. This is pounds and pounds of dough. 20 pounds, perhaps, maybe more. Enough to make a dozen large loaves. You lift the dough out of the trough and carry it to the work table. The table is still dusted with flour from earlier. You set the dough down in the center. It lands with a soft thud. It sits there in a lumpy pile, not holding any particular shape, just a mass. You dust your hands with flour. You take a palmful from the table and rub it between your palms. The flour prevents the dough from sticking too much. It makes the work easier. You dust the top of the dough pile as well, a light coating, just enough. Now you begin. You place both hands on top of the dough, your palms flat, your fingers spread. You push down and forward. You push with your body weight, not just your arms. You push from your shoulders, from your core. The dough compresses under your hands. It spreads forward on the table. You can feel the texture of it. Rough, resistant, heavy. You fold the far edge of the dough back toward you. You lift it up and fold it over the top. The dough is not elastic yet. It does not stretch easily. It tears a little as you fold it. That is okay. That is normal at this stage. You turn the mass of dough 90 degrees, a quarter turn. Now the fold you just made is to your side instead of in front of you. You position your hands on top of the dough again. You push, forward and down. The dough spreads. You fold it back. You turn it, 90 degrees. This is the rhythm. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. This is the motion that you will repeat hundreds of times over the next 20 minutes. This is the motion that will transform the dough. This is the ancient rhythm of making bread. You push again. The dough is still very rough. You can feel lumps in it. You can feel dry spots and wet spots. Your hands are getting sticky. You dust them with more flour. You dust the dough. You keep working. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. Your hands find their rhythm. Your body finds its rhythm. You are not thinking about the motion anymore. Your muscles remember. They have done this 1,000 times. They know what to do. The table is at the perfect height. You can lean your weight forward without bending too much. You can engage your whole body in the push. This is important because the dough is heavy and resistant. If you tried to knead with just your arm's strength, you would tire quickly. But by using your body weight, by pushing from your center, you can work for much longer. The room is warm. The heat from the oven is constant and enveloping. You can feel sweat starting to form on your back, under your arms. The physical work is making you warmer, but the heat is also helping the dough. The warmth keeps the dough supple. It keeps it comfortable to work with. It encourages the yeast to stay active. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. The motion is meditative. Your mind can rest while your body works. There is something deeply satisfying about this repetitive motion, something ancient and right. Human hands have been kneading dough for thousands of years. This exact motion, this exact rhythm. You are part of that unbroken chain. The dough is beginning to change. You can feel it. It is starting to come together. The rough, shaggy texture is smoothing out slightly. The dough is becoming more cohesive. When you push forward, it spreads in a more uniform way. When you fold it back, it holds together better. You keep kneading. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. Your breathing has fallen into rhythm with the motion. You breathe in as you fold. You breathe out as you push. This helps. This makes the work feel easier. Your breath and your hands and the dough are all moving together in one continuous flow. The flour on the table is getting worked into the dough. Every time you push forward, the dough picks up a little more flour. You add more when needed, just a light dusting, just enough to keep things manageable. Too much flour and the dough will become dry and stiff. Too little and it will stick to the table and to your hands and become impossible to work with. You know the balance. Your hands know the balance. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. The sound of the kneading is soft and rhythmic. A slight slap as your hands hit the dough. A soft sigh as the air is pressed out. A gentle scrape as the dough moves across the table. These sounds blend with the crackle of the fire in the oven. They blend with your breathing. The whole room seems to be breathing with you. The dough is getting smoother, definitely smoother now. The surface is starting to look less rough and more unified. When you press down on it, you can feel that it has more elasticity. It pushes back slightly against your hands. This is the gluten forming. The protein strands are linking together, creating structure, creating strength. You have been kneading for perhaps 5 minutes now, maybe a little more. Your arms are warm but not tired. The rhythm is comfortable. You could keep doing this for a long time, and you will. There is still a lot of kneading to do. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. The dough is becoming more responsive. When you push forward, it spreads and then springs back slightly. When you fold it, it holds the fold better. It is developing memory. It is developing character. You lean in and smell the dough. The sour smell from the starter is still there, but it is softer now, blended with the smell of the fresh flour. There is also a faint yeasty smell, that distinctive fermentation scent. The dough is alive. You can smell it. You can feel it in the way the texture is changing under your hands. Push, fold, turn, push, fold, turn. You adjust your position slightly, shifting your weight from one foot to the other. This helps prevent fatigue. This helps keep the motion smooth and even. You have learned over the years that it is important to listen to your body while you knead. If something starts to hurt, adjust. If your back gets tired, straighten up for a moment. This is a marathon, not a sprint. The dough is getting warmer. The friction of the kneading, combined with the heat from the oven and the warmth of your hands, is raising the temperature of the dough. This is good. Warm dough rises better. Warm dough is easier to work with. You can feel the dough becoming more supple, more alive, more responsive. 10 minutes of kneading now, perhaps more. The dough has transformed significantly. It is no longer shaggy. It is no longer rough and uneven. It has become a smooth, cohesive mass. The surface is becoming silky. When you push forward, the dough spreads evenly. When you fold back, it holds together perfectly. When you turn it, it moves as one piece. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. Your mind has completely settled into the rhythm. You are not thinking about anything else. Not the loaves that need to be baked. Not the oven temperature. Not the day ahead. Just this. Just the dough under your hands. Just the motion. Just the rhythm. The work table is dusted with flour, and your hands are coated with a thin layer of it. The dough picks up the flour with each push and fold, but you can still see the character of the dough coming through. The surface is becoming glossy. It is developing that characteristic sheen that good bread dough has. This is the gluten. This is the structure forming. You press your thumb into the dough. It sinks in easily, but when you pull your thumb away, the indentation slowly fills back in. The dough springs back. This is exactly what you want to see. This means the gluten is well developed. This means the dough has strength and elasticity. But you are not done yet. You keep kneading. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. The motion never stops. Each repetition makes the dough a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little bit more ready to become bread. 15 minutes now. Your arms have found a steady state. They are warm and working but not strained. The motion has become completely automatic. Your hands know where to go. Your body knows how much pressure to apply. This is muscle memory built over years of practice. This is craft. The dough is beautiful now, truly beautiful. The surface is smooth and silky. It reflects the golden light from the oven. It looks alive. It looks like something that wants to rise and expand and become bread. You can see tiny air bubbles just under the surface, evidence that the yeast is already working. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. The rhythm is hypnotic. Time seems to slow down, or maybe it speeds up. It is hard to tell when you are in this flow state. All you know is that the work feels good. The work feels right. Your hands on the dough responding to your touch. The ancient dance of baker and bread. You can feel the texture now when you push. It is not just smooth. It has a certain quality, a certain spring. When you push forward, the dough resists for just a moment before spreading. When you release the pressure, it bounces back slightly. This is perfect elasticity. This is what you have been working toward. 20 minutes, maybe a little more. You lift the dough off the table and fold it one more time. Then you hold it in your hands for a moment. It is smooth and warm and alive. You shape it gently into a ball, tucking the edges under so the surface is taut and smooth. You can feel the strength in the dough. You can feel the structure you have built through all that kneading. You set the dough ball down on the table and step back for a moment. Your hands are coated with dried flour. Your arms are warm. There is a light sheen of sweat on your forehead, but you feel good. The work feels good. The dough looks perfect. This is the transformation. This is what kneading does. 20 minutes ago, this was just a shaggy, rough mass of ingredients. Now it is a smooth, elastic, living dough, ready to rise, ready to become bread. The kneading has done its work. The gluten has formed. The structure is there. Everything is ready for the next step. The dough sits on the table in a perfect round. The surface is taut and smooth, catching the golden light from the oven. It looks peaceful. It looks complete. But the work is not quite done. The dough needs to be divided and shaped. The dough needs to be given its final form. And then it needs to rest. It needs time for the yeast to work. It needs time to rise. You reach for the dough scraper hanging on the wall. It is a simple tool, a flat piece of metal with one straight edge and one curved edge. The handle is wood, worn smooth by use. You bring the scraper to the table and position it near the dough. You begin to divide the dough into portions. Each portion will become one loaf. You press the scraper down through the dough, cutting it cleanly. The dough is so elastic now that it resists the scraper slightly. You have to push firmly to cut through. When the scraper emerges from the other side, the dough springs apart slightly, revealing the soft interior. You can see the structure inside. You can see the network of gluten strands. You can see tiny air pockets already forming. You cut the dough into 12 pieces, 12 rough, uneven portions. Each one weighs perhaps 1.5 pounds. Each one is enough for a good-sized loaf, the kind of loaf that will feed a family for a day. Now you begin to shape each portion. You pick up the first piece of dough. It is soft and warm in your hands. You fold the edges underneath, tucking them into the center. You turn the dough over so the smooth side is up. Then you cup your hands around it and begin to roll it against the table. This motion is different from the kneading. This is lighter, more delicate. You are not trying to develop the dough anymore. You are just trying to give it shape. You roll the dough in small circles. Your hands barely press down, just enough to guide the dough, just enough to create surface tension on the top. The dough responds beautifully. It tightens. It becomes round. The surface becomes taut and smooth. You can see the dough holding its shape now. It is no longer just a blob. It is a ball, a perfect round ball of dough. You set this first ball aside and pick up the second portion. You repeat the process. Fold the edges under. Turn it over. Cup your hands. Roll in small circles. The dough tightens. The dough rounds. Perfect. You work through all 12 portions. Each one gets the same careful attention. Each one gets shaped into a round ball. Each one sits on the table, smooth and taut and ready. By the time you finish, the table is covered with 12 perfect rounds of dough. They sit in neat rows, 3 across and 4 deep. They look like eggs. They look like smooth stones. They look like potential. Now comes the linen. Hanging on a hook nearby are several large cloths. They are made of undyed linen, rough and sturdy. These cloths have been used to cover rising dough for years. They are stained and darkened in places. They smell faintly of yeast and flour. They are perfect for this work. You take one of the cloths and shake it out. It unfolds in the air, a large rectangle of fabric. You drape it gently over 6 of the dough balls. The cloth settles down softly, covering them completely. The linen is breathable but protective. It will keep the dough from drying out. It will keep the surface soft. It will create a gentle, dark environment where the yeast can work undisturbed. You take a second cloth and cover the remaining 6 balls. Now all 12 portions are covered. All 12 are hidden under the linen. You can see the shapes of them under the fabric like gentle hills. But you cannot see the dough itself anymore. The dough is in darkness now, resting, rising. You step back from the table. The work is done. The mixing is done. The kneading is done. The shaping is done. Now there is nothing to do but wait. The yeast needs time. The yeast needs to eat the sugars in the flour. The yeast needs to produce carbon dioxide. The yeast needs to make the dough rise. The bakery falls into a comfortable quiet. The fire in the oven crackles softly. The heat radiates through the room. The linen cloths sit over the dough like blankets. Everything is still. Everything is peaceful. You walk to the oven and check the coals. They are still glowing orange and red. The oven is maintaining its heat perfectly. In a few hours, when the dough has risen, you will rake the coals out completely. You will wipe the oven floor clean with a wet cloth, and then you will slide the loaves in, one after another, until the oven is full. But that is later. That is still to come. For now, there is this quiet moment, this in-between time. The dough is resting, the yeast is working. The transformation is happening, invisible under the linen, silent in the warmth. The flour and water and starter are becoming something more than themselves. They are becoming bread. You pull a stool over to the wall and sit down. Your body is warm from the work. Your arms are tired in a pleasant way. You can smell the flour on your hands and apron. You can smell the yeast from the covered dough. You can smell the smoke from the oven. These are the smells of your trade. These are the smells of bread. Outside, the village is still dark. It will be dark for another hour at least, maybe more. The stars are still bright in the frozen sky. The cold is still sharp and biting. But inside this bakery, inside these thick walls, there is warmth and light and the quiet work of fermentation. There is the slow magic of bread rising. You sit in the golden light from the oven. You listen to the fire crackle. You watch the covered mounds of dough on the table. You can almost sense them growing, expanding, the yeast working its invisible magic. In an hour, maybe less, you will lift the linen and see that the dough has doubled in size. You will see that it has become light and airy and ready. And then the final work will begin. The baking. The transformation from raw dough to golden, crusty bread. But for now, you rest. You wait. You let the dough do its work. This is part of the rhythm too, not just the mixing and the kneading and the shaping, but also this, the waiting, the patience, the quiet trust that the yeast will do what it has always done, that the dough will rise, that the bread will come. The warmth wraps around you. The peace of the bakery settles into your bones. Outside, the world is frozen and dark. But here, in this small room, there is warmth and work and the timeless process of making bread. Here, in the hours before dawn, the day is already beginning. You stand from the stool. Your legs are slightly stiff from sitting, but the warmth has kept your muscles loose. You stretch your arms above your head and feel your shoulders release. The bakery is still wrapped in that golden light from the oven. The heat is steady and comforting. The fire has been burning for hours now, and the entire room feels like the inside of something alive. You walk to the table. The linen cloths are still draped over the dough, but something has changed. You can see it even before you lift the fabric. The cloths are no longer flat. They are domed. They are rounded. They have been pushed up from below. The dough has risen. You reach for the corner of the first cloth. You lift it slowly, carefully. The linen pulls away and you see them, the 6 rounds of dough. They have transformed. They have doubled in size, maybe more than doubled. They sit on the table like small cushions, pale and swollen and soft-looking. They are magnificent. The surface of each round is smooth and taut. You can see the way the dough has stretched as it expanded. The top of each loaf has that characteristic tension, like skin pulled tight over something full and alive. And they are warm. Even from here, even without touching them, you can sense the warmth radiating from the dough. The yeast has been working hard. The yeast has been producing heat as well as gas. You move to the second cloth and lift it. 6 more rounds, all of them risen, all of them doubled, all of them perfect. The table is crowded now with these swollen balls of dough. They take up so much more space than they did before. They are pressing against each other slightly, their sides touching, leaving gentle impressions where they meet. You reach out and touch the top of one loaf with a single finger. You press down very gently. The dough is soft, incredibly soft. Your finger sinks in easily, like pressing into a pillow filled with the finest down. And when you pull your finger away, the indentation remains. The dough does not spring back anymore. This is good. This is exactly what you want to see. This means the dough is fully risen. This means the yeast has done its work. This means the dough is ready to bake. You lean in close and smell the dough. The smell has changed since you shaped these rounds. It is stronger now, more intense. The sour, cidery smell of fermentation is more pronounced, but there is also something sweet underneath, something almost fruity. This is the smell of active yeast. This is the smell of bread dough at its peak. You can see tiny bubbles just under the surface of the dough. If you look carefully at the smooth top of each round, you can see small irregularities, little bumps and valleys. These are pockets of gas trapped just beneath the skin of the dough. The entire interior of each round is filled with these pockets, hundreds of them, thousands of them. The yeast has created a network of holes and chambers throughout the dough. This is what makes bread light and airy instead of dense and heavy. The dough is slightly sticky to the touch. When you press your finger against it, a thin layer adheres to your skin. This is normal. This is how well-risen dough should feel. Too dry and the dough would be stiff and hard to work with. Too wet and it would collapse. But this is perfect. This has exactly the right consistency. You walk around the table examining each round. They are not all exactly the same size. Some have risen a bit more than others. Some are slightly taller, some are slightly wider. This is natural. Each bowl of dough is slightly different. Each one had slightly more or less yeast. Each one was shaped slightly differently. But they are all beautiful. They are all ready. The warmth from the oven fills the room. You can feel it on your back as you stand at the table. The heat has been constant all through the rising time. This is crucial. Dough rises best in warmth. If the room had been cold, the yeast would have worked slowly. The dough might have taken twice as long to rise, or it might not have risen properly at all. But here, in this warm bakery, with the heat from the oven radiating through the space, the yeast has worked perfectly. You look at the rounds of dough and feel a sense of satisfaction. This is one of the best moments in the baking process. The moment when you lift the cloth and see that the dough has risen. The moment when you know that everything has worked. The starter was strong. The mixing was thorough. The kneading was sufficient. The rising conditions were right. Everything has come together exactly as it should. The dough looks alive. That is the only way to describe it. Each round looks like something living and breathing. The surface is taut but soft. The body is swollen but light. If you could see inside, you would see a structure like a sponge. Thousands of tiny chambers filled with gas, walls of gluten stretching between them. This is the architecture of bread. This is the structure that will hold when the loaves go into the oven. This is what will give the finished bread its texture and its lift. But the dough cannot sit like this for long. Dough that is fully risen is delicate. If you wait too long, if you let the dough sit for another hour, it will overproof. The gluten structure will begin to break down. The dough will become slack and weak. When you try to move it, it will collapse. When you put it in the oven, it will not hold its shape. So now, right now, is the time. The dough is at its peak. The dough is ready. The oven is hot. It is time to bake. But first, the oven must be prepared. The floor must be cleaned. The coals must be removed. The surface must be perfect for the bread. This is the next step. This is crucial. You turn away from the beautiful risen dough and walk back to the oven. The oven is radiating heat. You can feel it from several feet away. The mouth is still glowing with coals pushed to the sides. The center of the oven floor, where you cleared the coals earlier, is dark, but you know it is incredibly hot. The bricks have been absorbing heat for hours. They are saturated with it. When you place the bread on that floor, it will begin baking immediately. But first, the coals must be removed completely. Every ember, every piece of ash. The oven floor must be clean for the bread. You reach for the iron rake again. The handle is warm from being in the hot room. You extend the rake into the oven and begin pulling the coals toward the mouth. The heat is intense. Even though you are standing to the side, even though you are trying to keep your face away from the opening, the heat presses against you like a solid thing. Your cheeks feel tight. Your eyes want to close against the glare. You pull the coals forward. They tumble out of the mouth of the oven and fall into the iron tray positioned below. The tray is there specifically for this purpose, to catch the hot coals, to keep them from falling onto the floor. The coals land with soft thuds and the sound of shifting ash. They glow orange and red. Some are still burning. Some have turned to grey ash but are still hot enough to burn. You work methodically. You rake the coals from the left side of the oven, then the right side. Then you reach deep into the back, pulling forward any coals that might have rolled to the rear. The oven interior is large. Your arms are fully extended with the rake. You can barely reach the back wall, but you manage. You pull everything forward, every coal, every piece of ash, everything. Finally, the oven is clear. You set the rake aside and look into the mouth. The floor is empty now. No coals, no embers, just the dark bricks glowing with stored heat. But the floor is not clean. It is covered with ash. Fine, powdery ash that has fallen from the burning wood. This ash must be removed. If you bake bread on a floor covered with ash, the ash will stick to the bottom of the loaves. It will create an unpleasant taste and texture. You reach for the scuffle. This is the tool for cleaning the oven floor. It is a long wooden pole, perhaps 8 feet in length, with a flat piece of wood attached to the end. The flat piece is wrapped in wet cloth. An old piece of linen, soaked in water, wrapped around the wood and tied in place. The cloth is dripping. Water runs down the pole as you lift it. You position the scuffle at the mouth of the oven. You push it in. The wet cloth meets the hot brick floor, and immediately there is a violent hiss. Steam erupts. White, billowing steam that rushes out of the oven mouth in a cloud. The sound is sharp and loud. The steam is hot. You turn your face away and close your eyes. You can feel the heat of the steam on your skin. You push the scuffle forward and begin to work it across the floor. You move it back and forth. The wet cloth is wiping the ash from the bricks. You can hear the scraping sound. You can hear the hiss of steam as the cloth touches the hot surface. The steam keeps billowing out. It fills the front of the oven. It spills out into the room. The smell of hot, wet brick fills the air. You pull the scuffle back and look at the cloth. It is black with ash, completely black. You dip it in the bucket of water sitting nearby. The ash washes off in dark swirls. You wring out the cloth and push the scuffle back into the oven. More steam, more hissing. You work the cloth across the floor again, reaching as far back as you can. This process takes time. You must be thorough. Every inch of the oven floor must be clean. You wipe and check, wipe and check. The cloth comes back each time covered in ash. You rinse it and go back in. The steam continues to billow. Your face and arms are damp from it. Your hair is damp. The moisture in the air is thick and warm. Finally, after perhaps 10 passes, the cloth comes back clean. Well, mostly clean. There is still some grey residue, but the heavy ash is gone. The oven floor is ready. You set the scuffle aside and look into the oven. The steam is beginning to clear. You can see the floor now. The bricks are dark and clean. They are still glowing with heat. Perfect. But the steam has done something else too. The moisture has been absorbed into the hot bricks. This is good. This is necessary. When the bread goes in, when the cool dough hits the hot, moist bricks, the moisture will turn to steam again. That steam will surround the loaves in the first few minutes of baking. It will keep the crust soft and allow the bread to expand. Then, as the steam dissipates, the crust will begin to harden. This is how you get that perfect bread crust, hard and golden on the outside, soft and airy on the inside. Now you need the peel, the bread peel. This is the tool that will carry the loaves into the oven. It is leaning against the wall nearby, a long, flat wooden paddle. The handle is 6 feet long. The blade is wide and thin, perhaps 2 feet across and 3 feet long. The wood is smooth and worn from use. You carry the peel to the table and set it beside the risen loaves. But you cannot put the dough directly on the wooden peel. It will stick. You need something to prevent sticking. You need bran. There is a sack of bran near the flour sacks. Bran is the outer layer of the wheat kernel. It was separated from the flour during milling. It is rough and flaky, dark brown in color. It is used for animal feed mostly, but it is also perfect for dusting the bread peel. You take a handful of bran and scatter it across the surface of the peel. The flakes fall in a thin layer. They are dry and light. They will create a barrier between the dough and the wood. They will allow the loaves to slide off the peel easily when you want to transfer them into the oven. You scatter another handful of bran, and another. You want good coverage. You spread it with your hand, making sure the entire surface of the peel is covered. The bran looks like dark freckles on the pale wood. Now everything is ready. The oven is hot and clean. The peel is prepared. The dough is risen and waiting. It is time for the next step. It is time to score the loaves. It is time to give them their final mark before they go into the heat. Scoring the bread. This is a crucial step. This is not just decorative, this is functional. When bread bakes, the heat causes the dough to expand rapidly. The yeast produces a final burst of gas. The water in the dough turns to steam. The loaf wants to grow. If you do not give the dough a place to expand, it will tear randomly. It will burst open in weak spots. The loaf will be misshapen and uneven. But if you score the top of the loaf before it goes in the oven, if you cut deliberate slashes into the surface, you control where the expansion happens. The dough will tear along your cuts. It will bloom open in the pattern you choose. This gives the bread its characteristic appearance, the beautiful splits and ears and ridges that mark a well-made loaf. You reach for your lame. This is your scoring knife. It is a simple tool, a wooden handle with a very sharp blade. The blade is thin and curved slightly. It is sharp enough to cut through the taut skin of the dough without dragging or tearing. You keep it sharp. You sharpen it every few days. A dull blade will pull at the dough and deflate it. A sharp blade cuts clean and quick. You pick up the lame and test the edge with your thumb. Carefully, very carefully. The blade is sharp, very sharp, good. You approach the first loaf. It sits on the table, pale and swollen and perfect. You position yourself above it. You hold the lame at an angle, not straight up and down. Angle is important. If you cut straight down, the slash will just open like a crack. But if you cut at an angle, the dough will push up and create an ear, a ridge of crust that stands up from the surface. This is what you want. You take a breath, you steady your hand, then you move. The blade cuts across the top of the loaf in one smooth, swift motion. The sound is beautiful, a soft whisper of steel through dough. The blade is so sharp and the motion is so quick that there is barely any resistance. The dough parts easily. You can see the cut immediately. A clean slash across the top of the loaf, perhaps 6 inches long, perhaps an inch deep. And then something wonderful happens. The cut begins to open, just slightly. The dough inside is lighter than the dough on the surface. The tension in the skin has been released. The slash spreads open by itself, revealing the pale interior. You can see the structure inside, the web of gluten, the pockets of gas. It looks like a wound. It looks alive. You make a second cut, parallel to the first, about an inch away. The blade moves through the dough with that same whispered sound. The cut opens. Now the top of the loaf has 2 parallel slashes. They look clean and deliberate. They look purposeful. You move to the second loaf. The same motions. Angle the blade. One swift cut. The dough parts. The slash opens. Another cut. Parallel, clean, beautiful. The rhythm is quick but careful. Each cut must be swift to avoid dragging. Each cut must be angled correctly. Each cut must be deep enough to be effective, but not so deep that it deflates the loaf. This is a skill. This takes practice. You have scored thousands of loaves. Your hand knows the motion. Your eye knows the angle. Third loaf, fourth loaf, fifth loaf. The blade moves, the dough parts, the slash is open. You work your way across the table. Each loaf gets two parallel cuts. Some loaves you score in a simple cross pattern instead. One slash north to south, one slash east to west. They open like a flower. They will bloom in the oven. The sound of the scoring is hypnotic, that soft whisper, over and over. Cut, 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 the blade moving through the taut skin, the dough releasing its tension, the interior revealed. Sixth loaf, seventh loaf, eighth loaf. Your hand is steady, your motions are fluid, there is no hesitation. The blade knows where to go. Cut, 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 cut. You can see the difference in the loaves now. Before they were smooth and perfect. Now they are marked. Now they bear your signature. These cuts will define how the bread looks when it comes out of the oven. These slashes will open into golden splits. The edges will rise and curl. The interior will push through and create texture and depth. Ninth loaf, 10th loaf, 11th loaf, almost done. The blade continues its work, swift and precise. Each cut is identical to the last. This is the mark of skill, consistency. Every loaf scored the same way, every slash at the same angle, every cut the same depth. 12th loaf, the final one. You make the two cuts with the same care as the first. The blade whispers through the dough. The slash is open. Done. You set the lame down and look at your work. 12 scored loaves, all of them marked and ready. The slashes have opened slightly in the warm air. They look like they are breathing, like they are waiting. The dough inside the cuts is paler than the surface. It is exposed now. It will be the first part to hit the heat when the loaves go into the oven. Your hands are steady. Your breathing is calm. This is one of the moments that requires absolute focus. One slip of the blade and you could ruin a loaf. One cut too deep and the dough would deflate. One hesitation and the blade would drag and tear instead of slicing clean. But your hands know this work. Your body knows this work. The cuts are perfect. Now comes the moment of truth. Now comes the part where the loaves go into the oven. Now comes the loading. You pick up the bread peel. The handle is smooth and familiar in your hands. The blade is dusted with bran. You position the peel beside the first scored loaf. You slide the edge of the peel under the loaf. Carefully, very carefully. The dough is soft and delicate. If you are too rough, it will deflate. If you push too hard, it will tear. The peel slides under the loaf. The bran helps. The loaf lifts easily. You can feel the weight of it on the peel, not heavy exactly, but substantial. This is 1.5 pounds of risen dough. Light for its size because of all the air inside, but still solid, still real. You carry the loaded peel to the oven. You position yourself in front of the mouth. The heat hits you immediately. Your face flushes. Your eyes water slightly, but you do not flinch. You have done this 1,000 times. You know the heat. You know how to work in it. You extend the peel into the oven. The blade slides across the hot brick floor. You can hear the scraping sound of wood on stone. You push the peel all the way to the back of the oven. Then comes the crucial moment. You jerk the peel back sharply. The loaf slides off. It lands on the hot bricks with a soft sound. The bottom of the loaf hits the heat immediately. You can hear a faint sizzle as the moisture in the dough touches the hot stone. You pull the peel back out quickly. You look into the oven. The loaf is there, sitting at the back, pale and scored and perfect. The heat is already beginning to work on it. You can see the surface beginning to change. It is subtle, but it is happening. Back to the table. The peel is empty. You slide it under the second loaf. Lift, carry, extend, jerk. The second loaf slides off next to the first. The motion is smooth, practiced. This is a dance. This is a rhythm. You have done this so many times that your body knows exactly what to do. Third loaf. Slide, lift, carry, extend, jerk. The loaf lands in the oven. You can fit 3 loaves across the back of the oven. That is the first row. 3 loaves sitting at the back, starting to bake. Fourth loaf. The motion repeats. Slide the peel under the dough. Lift carefully. The loaf is soft and heavy on the blade. Carry it to the oven. Extend the peel. Push it in. Feel the heat on your face and hands. Jerk the peel back. The loaf slides off. It lands in front of the first row, slightly to the left. You are building a pattern, a grid. You know exactly where each loaf needs to go so they all fit. Fifth loaf. Slide, lift, carry, extend, jerk. The rhythm is hypnotic. Your body moves in the same pattern over and over, table to oven, oven to table. Load the peel, transfer the loaf. The motion is efficient. There is no wasted movement. Every step is necessary. Every motion has purpose. Sixth loaf. You are halfway done. The oven is beginning to fill. You can see the loaves inside now. 6 pale rounds sitting on the dark brick floor. They are starting to react to the heat. The surfaces are beginning to firm up. The slashes are beginning to open wider. Seventh loaf. The motion continues. Slide, lift, carry, extend, jerk. The peel moves smoothly. The loaf transfers perfectly. Your timing is exact. You know how hard to jerk the peel. Too soft and the loaf will not slide off. Too hard and the loaf will tumble and lose its shape. But you have the touch. The loaf lands exactly where you want it. Eighth loaf. The second row is filling in. The pattern is becoming clear. 3 loaves at the back, 3 loaves in the middle. And soon there will be 3 loaves at the front. The oven floor will be completely full. 12 loaves baking at once, all sharing the heat, all transforming together. Ninth loaf. Slide, lift, carry, extend, jerk. The heat from the oven is intense now. Every time you approach the mouth, every time you extend the peel inside, the heat washes over you. Your face is red. Your arms are hot. Sweat is beginning to form on your forehead, but you keep working. The rhythm does not stop. 10th loaf. Almost done. Just 3 more. The motion is automatic now. Your hands know where to go. Your body knows how to move. You do not have to think. You just do. Slide, lift, carry, extend, jerk. 11th loaf. 2 more. The oven is nearly full. You can see all the loaves inside now. They are arranged in perfect rows, 3 by 3. The last row has 2 loaves, 1 more space to fill. 12th loaf, the final one. You slide the peel underneath with the same care as the first. You lift it, the last loaf. You carry it to the oven. You extend the peel 1 more time. The heat is overwhelming. Your face is so hot it feels like it might burn, but you push through. You jerk the peel back. The final loaf slides into place. The oven is full. You pull the peel out and step back. Your heart is beating hard, not from exertion exactly, but from focus, from the intensity of working so close to that heat, from the precision required to place each loaf correctly. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve. You take a deep breath of the cooler air away from the oven mouth. You look into the oven. 12 loaves, all of them pale and scored, all of them sitting on the hot bricks, all of them beginning to bake. You can see the heat shimmering in the air inside the oven. You can see the loaves already starting to change. The surfaces are firming. The slashes are opening wider. The transformation has begun. But you cannot leave the oven open. You cannot let all the heat escape. The oven must be sealed. The heat must be trapped inside. That is what creates the environment the bread needs to bake properly. You reach for the oven door. It is heavy, iron. It has been leaning against the wall beside the oven. You lift it carefully. It is hot to the touch even though it has been away from the fire. The metal has absorbed the ambient heat of the room. You position the door in front of the oven mouth. You fit it into place. It settles with a solid clank, metal against brick. The oven is sealed. The door has a small iron handle. You push it to make sure the door is secure. It does not move. It is solid. The heat is trapped inside. The 12 loaves are baking in darkness now, surrounded by heat, transforming in the sealed oven. You step away and set the peel down. Your arms are tired, your face is flushed and hot, but you feel good. The work is progressing. The loaves are in. Now comes the waiting. Now comes the watching. And most importantly, now comes the smell. At first, nothing changes. The bakery smells the same as it has all morning: flour dust, wood smoke, the faint sour tang of fermentation. These are familiar smells, comfortable smells. But then, after perhaps 5 minutes, something begins to shift. You notice it first as a subtle change in the air, a warmth in the smell, a hint of something new underneath the familiar sense. It is barely there, just a whisper, but it is growing. You breathe in through your nose, slowly, deeply. Yes, there it is, the beginning of the transformation. The bread is starting to bake. The smell grows stronger. It is no longer a whisper. It is becoming real. It is becoming present. You can smell the heat now, the smell of flour being toasted, the smell of sugars beginning to caramelize. It is a warm smell, a brown smell, the smell of things being transformed by fire. After 10 minutes, the smell has changed completely. The sour yeast smell is gone, or not gone exactly, but buried, covered by something much stronger, much more compelling: the smell of baking bread. It is impossible to describe this smell if you have never experienced it. It is warm and sweet and savory all at once. It smells like grain and fire and home. It smells like comfort and safety and satisfaction. It is one of the oldest smells in human civilization, one of the most fundamental: the smell of bread baking. You close your eyes and just breathe it in. The smell fills your nose, it fills your lungs, it seems to fill your entire body. This is why you do this work, this moment, this smell, this ancient, perfect smell. The smell continues to intensify. After 15 minutes, it has become the dominant presence in the room. Everything else fades away: the flour dust, the wood smoke. All you can smell is the bread, sweet and toasted and golden. The crust is forming now. You cannot see it, but you can smell it. The outside of the loaves is turning brown. The sugars in the flour are caramelizing. The proteins are creating those complex flavors that make bread crust so delicious. You walk closer to the oven and stand near the sealed door. The heat radiating from the bricks is intense, but the smell is even more intense. It pours from every crack around the door. It seeps from every gap between the bricks. The oven is filled with it. The bread is creating it. Waves of smell rolling out into the room. This smell will travel far. Even now, even though it is still early morning, people in the nearby houses are probably beginning to wake to this smell. It will drift through the village. It will seep under doors and through shutters. People will smell it in their sleep, and it will make them hungry. It will make them think of breakfast. It will make them glad that the baker is awake and working while they were sleeping. 20 minutes. The smell is overwhelming now, rich and deep and complex. You can smell the crust. You can smell the interior crumb. You can smell the fermentation and the wheat and the salt and the fire all blended together into something greater than the sum of its parts. This is the smell of bread. You sit on the stool again and just wait. There is nothing to do now but let the oven work. Let the heat transform the dough. The yeast inside the loaves is experiencing one final burst of activity. The heat is causing the carbon dioxide to expand rapidly. The loaves are growing. They are rising one last time. The slashes you scored into the tops are opening wide. The edges are curling back. The interior crumb is pushing through. This is called oven spring. This is the final growth of the bread. 25 minutes. You can imagine what is happening inside the sealed oven. The loaves have grown significantly. They are no longer pale. The surfaces have turned golden brown. The slashes have opened into beautiful splits. The crust has formed, hard and crackling. The interior is setting. The gluten network is solidifying. The bread is becoming bread. 30 minutes. The smell has reached its peak. The entire bakery is filled with it. It is thick in the air. You can taste it on your tongue. This is the smell that humans have loved for 10,000 years. Since the first time someone mixed grain with water and discovered that it could be baked, this smell has not changed. It is the same smell that a baker in ancient Egypt would have known. The same smell that a baker in Rome would have known. The same smell that bakers will know for thousands of years to come. You stand and approach the oven door. You lean close, but not too close. The metal is very hot. You listen. You can hear faint sounds from inside, soft pops and cracks. This is the crust forming, the surface of the bread contracting and splitting as it hardens. These sounds tell you that the bread is nearly done, that the transformation is almost complete. The smell, you breathe it in one more time, deep and slow. This is why people love bread, this smell, this warmth, this evidence of care and work and time. Someone woke up in the darkness. Someone built a fire. Someone mixed and kneaded and waited. Someone did the work so that this smell could exist, so that this bread could exist. It is an act of service, an act of community, an act of love. 35 minutes. It is time. The bread is ready. You can feel it. You can smell it. The transformation is complete. Now you must open the oven and bring the finished loaves out into the light. But first you pause. You walk to the small window set in the wall near the door. The window is just a narrow opening, perhaps a foot square, with wooden shutters that can be closed against the cold. Right now the shutters are slightly open. You push them wider and look out. The darkness has changed. It is no longer the complete heavy blackness of the deep night. The sky has lightened, just slightly, just enough. The eastern horizon has a faint glow, not the sun yet, not direct light, but the promise of it. The sky is turning from black to deep purple. The stars are fading. You can see the outline of the buildings across the way, the thatched roofs, the walls. They are still dark, but they are visible now, distinct against the lightening sky. The village is taking shape in the pre-dawn light. As you watch, the purple fades to grey, a lighter grey, almost blue in places. The horizon is glowing more brightly now. The sun is coming, not yet visible, but close, very close. The darkness is retreating. The day is being born. You hear a sound in the distance, a rooster. The crow is sharp and clear in the quiet air. It echoes across the village. The rooster is announcing the dawn, telling the world that morning has come. It crows again and again, persistent and loud. Other sounds begin to join it. You hear the creak of a door opening. Someone else is awake. Someone stepping out into the cold morning. You hear footsteps, heavy boots on frozen ground. You hear the sound of a cart, wooden wheels rolling over the hard earth. Someone is starting their day. Someone is going to work. The village is waking up, but you have been awake for hours. While they were sleeping, warm under their blankets, you were here, working in the heat and the golden light, mixing flour and water, kneading dough, waiting for the rise, loading the oven, creating the bread that they will eat today. There is something peaceful about this, something satisfying. You are ahead of the world. You are already deep into your work while others are just opening their eyes. You have been productive. You have been useful. And soon, very soon, you will have something to show for it. 12 beautiful loaves of bread, hot and golden and perfect. The grey sky continues to lighten. You can see more details now. The bare trees at the edge of the village, the stone wall around the well, the path that leads to the main road. Everything is becoming visible. The world is returning. You hear a dog bark, then another. The animals are waking. Chickens begin to cluck and rustle in their coops. A cow lows in a nearby barn, the sounds of a village coming to life. Familiar sounds, comforting sounds, the same sounds every morning, the rhythm of daily life beginning again. You look down the lane and see a thin line of smoke rising from a chimney. Someone has started their own fire. Someone is trying to warm their cold house. You think of your own fire burning all night in the bakery oven. You think of the warmth that has surrounded you all through these dark hours. You have been fortunate. You have been warm and productive while the village slept in the cold. The sky is definitely lighter now. The purple and grey have given way to a pale blue. The horizon is bright with the imminent sunrise. You can see individual clouds now. They are catching the first light. Their edges glow pink and orange. Beautiful. The day is almost here. You turn away from the window and look back at the bakery. The golden light from the oven has become less prominent now that the natural light is growing outside. But it is still there, still warm and welcoming. The room is incredibly hot. Hours of baking have raised the temperature significantly. The walls are warm to the touch. The beams of the ceiling radiate heat. Everything in this room has absorbed the warmth. And the smell is still overwhelming. The bread is ready. The village is waking. It is time, time to open the oven, time to bring the bread out, time to finish the work you started in the darkness before dawn. You walk back to the oven. The iron door is radiating heat. You can feel it before you even touch it. You reach for the thick leather gloves hanging on the wall. These gloves are essential. The metal will be hot enough to burn bare skin in an instant. You pull the gloves on. They are stiff and heavy. They have been heated and heated again countless times. They smell like smoke and leather and work. You grip the iron handle of the oven door. Even through the thick leather, you can feel the heat. You pull. The door is heavy, but it moves. It scrapes against the brick as it comes away from the opening. You pull it fully open and set it aside, leaning it against the wall. Heat rushes out, a wave of it, hot air billowing from the oven mouth. It washes over you. Your face feels like it is being pressed by a hot cloth. You step back slightly and let the first rush of heat dissipate. Then you step forward and look inside. The loaves. They are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. They are no longer pale. They are golden brown, deep golden brown, the color of honey, the color of late autumn wheat, the color of sunset. Each loaf has expanded. Each one is bigger than it was when it went in. The slashes have opened wide. The cuts have pulled apart to reveal the interior of the bread. The crumb is visible in those openings, pale and full of holes, light and airy. The crusts are hard. You can see that even from here. The surfaces have a sheen to them, a glassiness from the sugars that have caramelized. The edges of the slashes have curled back. They stand up like ridges, like ears. These are the marks of a well-baked loaf, the signs of proper oven spring and proper heat. You reach for the peel again, but you do not need the bran now. The bread is baked. It will not stick to the wood. The crust is hard and dry. You slide the peel into the oven under the first loaf at the back. The loaf is much lighter now than it was when it went in. The water has evaporated. The bread has become lighter, drier, but it is still substantial. You pull the peel back and the loaf slides out. You carry it to the table and tilt the peel. The loaf slides off and lands on the wooden surface with a solid thunk. The sound is different now. Before, when the dough was soft, it made a muffled sound. But now the loaf is hard. The crust is rigid. The sound is crisp and sharp. You reach out and tap the bottom of the loaf with your knuckles. The sound that comes back is hollow, a deep, resonant thud. This is the sound of properly baked bread. The interior is full of holes and air. The crust is hard and complete. This loaf is perfect. But there is something else. As the loaf sits on the table, as it begins to cool in the air of the room, you hear it. A sound, faint but unmistakable, a crackling. The crust is contracting as it cools. The hard shell is splitting and popping, tiny fractures appearing in the surface. This is one of the most beautiful sounds in baking, the song of cooling bread, the evidence that the crust is thin and hard and perfect. You go back for the second loaf, slide the peel under it, pull it from the oven, transfer it to the table, the hollow thunk. The crackling song, perfect. Third loaf, fourth loaf, fifth loaf, you work steadily. The motion is the same as when you loaded the oven, but reversed. Into the oven with the empty peel, under the loaf. Out with the loaded peel, transfer to the table. Each loaf joins its companions on the wooden surface. Each one sings its crackling song as it cools. The table is filling up. The golden loaves are arranged in rows. They glow in the light from the window. The natural daylight is stronger now. It competes with the golden light from the oven. The loaves look like treasure, like gold, like the most valuable things in the world. And in a way they are. This is food. This is sustenance. This is life. Sixth loaf, seventh loaf, eighth loaf, more than half done now. The oven is getting emptier. The table is getting fuller. The balance is shifting. The work is almost complete. The heat in the room is intense. The oven has been open for several minutes now. All that stored heat is pouring out into the bakery. The air is thick and hot. You can feel sweat running down your back. Your face is red and hot. Your arms are tired from reaching into the oven over and over. But you keep going. Just a few more. Just a little longer. Ninth loaf, 10th loaf, 11th loaf, almost done. The table is crowded with bread now, golden loaves everywhere. The smell is incredible. The heat is incredible. Everything is intense and full and complete. 12th loaf, the last one. You slide the peel under it with the same care as all the others. You pull it from the oven. You carry it to the table. You tilt the peel and let the loaf slide off. It lands with that perfect hollow thunk. It begins its crackling song. Done. You pull off the leather gloves and set them aside. Your hands are red and hot. You flex your fingers and let them cool in the air. You walk to the window and push the shutters fully open. Cool air flows in. It feels wonderful on your hot face. You breathe it in deeply. The fresh air and the smell of bread mixing together. You look back at the table. 12 loaves, all of them perfect, all of them golden and hard and beautiful. The crackling has subsided now. The crusts have settled. But if you listen carefully, you can still hear faint pops and ticks as the bread continues to cool. This is the culmination. This is what all the work was for. These 12 loaves represent hours of labor, mixing, kneading, waiting, scoring, loading, baking. But now they are done. Now they are real. No longer just flour and water and yeast, but bread, actual bread, food that will nourish, food that will satisfy, food that will bring comfort and joy. The bakery is incredibly hot, hotter than it has been all morning. The oven has been open. The fresh bread is still radiating heat. The walls and ceiling have absorbed hours of warmth. The entire room feels like the inside of an embrace, warm and enveloping and complete. You walk to the table and look at your work. The 12 loaves arranged in rows. You can see the differences now. No two are exactly alike. Some are slightly larger. Some are slightly smaller. The slashes have opened differently on each one. Some have dramatic ears. Some have gentle splits. Each loaf has its own character, its own personality. But they are all beautiful, every single one. The color is perfect. Deep golden brown with darker spots where the crust caramelized more. The surfaces are glossy. The ridges from the scoring are prominent and sharp. These are well-made loaves. These are loaves that any baker would be proud of. You reach out and touch one of them. The crust is hard, very hard. It feels almost like wood. But when you press slightly, you can feel that there is softness underneath. The interior crumb is soft and light and full of air. This is the perfect texture for bread, hard outside, soft inside, structure and tenderness in one. You lift one of the loaves. It is much lighter than you expect. The water has evaporated during baking. What went into the oven as heavy, wet dough has come out as light, dry bread. This is the transformation. This is the magic of baking, turning heavy into light, turning dense into airy, turning raw into cooked. You hold the loaf to your ear and tap it again. The hollow sound rings out. Perfect. You bring the loaf to your nose and smell it. The smell is even better up close, sweet and toasted and complex. The crust smells like caramel and nuts and grain. The smell makes your mouth water. You have not eaten yet this morning. You have been working since before dawn. You are hungry. But these loaves are not for you. These loaves are for the village, for the people who are waking up now, for the families who need bread for their breakfast and their dinner. You set the loaf back on the table with the others. You step back and look at the full table, the full oven of bread. This represents your morning's work. This represents your skill and your knowledge and your dedication. This is what you do. This is your craft. This is your contribution to the village. The sunlight is streaming through the open window now. The sun has risen. The sky is bright blue. The day has begun. You can hear more sounds from outside, voices, footsteps, the sounds of people starting their work. The blacksmith will be firing his forge. The shepherd will be leading his flock out to pasture. The women will be drawing water from the well. Everyone has their work. Everyone has their role. And yours is this, making bread, feeding the village. You walk to the oven and look inside. It is empty now. The bricks are still glowing with heat, but the loaves are gone. The floor is marked with dark spots where the loaves sat, but otherwise it is clean and ready. Tomorrow morning you will do this again. You will build the fire. You will mix the dough. You will knead and shape and wait. You will load the oven and bake and unload. The rhythm will repeat, day after day, year after year. This is the work. This is the life of a baker. But for now, this morning, the work is done. The bread is made. The sun is up. The village is awake. You have succeeded. You have taken flour and water and starter and turned them into food, into sustenance, into comfort. You can feel the satisfaction settling into your bones. It is a good feeling, a deep feeling, the feeling of work completed, of skills used well, of a task finished properly. Your body is tired. Your arms are sore from kneading and loading. Your face is hot from the oven. Your back aches from standing for hours. But these are good aches. These are the signs of honest work. The room is beginning to cool slightly now that the oven has been emptied. The door is still open. The heat is dissipating. But it will be hours before the room returns to normal temperature. For now, the bakery is warm and full and perfect. The smell of fresh bread fills every corner. The golden loaves sit on the table like trophies. You pour yourself a cup of water from the pitcher. The water is room temperature, not cold, but it is wet and clean and refreshing. You drink deeply. Your throat was dry from the heat and the work. The water feels wonderful going down. You sit on the stool and rest. You have earned this rest. You have been awake for hours. You have worked hard. Your body needs a moment to recover. You sit in the warm room and look at the bread and feel the satisfaction of a job well done. Outside, the village continues to wake. More voices, more footsteps, the sounds of life resuming. Soon people will come to the bakery. They will come to buy bread. They will come for their daily loaf. The bread that you made. The bread that started in darkness and ended in light. The bread that will feed them and nourish them and give them energy for their own work. This is the circle. This is the rhythm of village life. Everyone depends on everyone else. The baker depends on the miller for flour. The miller depends on the farmer for grain. The farmer depends on the blacksmith for tools. The blacksmith depends on the baker for bread. Around and around. Each person contributing. Each person serving. Each person part of something larger. You look at the 12 loaves again. They have stopped crackling now. They have settled into their final form. They are ready, ready to be sold, ready to be taken home, ready to be sliced and eaten, ready to fulfill their purpose. The warmth surrounds you. The satisfaction fills you. The work is done. The sun is up. The world is awake. And you are safe. Tired but safe. Warm but cooling. Finished but ready to begin again tomorrow. This is the life. This is the work. This is the ancient rhythm of making bread. And as the sun rises over the village and the smell of fresh bread wakes the neighbors, the bakery remains the warm heart of the town. The fire dies down, the bread is made, and you are safe. Sleep well.